we're going to hear a little more specificity. We're going to double click on how to become a cloud and AI professional. So I want to bring onto the stage Maryam Ashoori, who's the Director of Product Management at IBM. She's been in technology for 15 plus years, developing data-driven solutions that drive demand and delight customers. She's impacted millions of people worldwide, the teams that she's led in diverse engineering, design, science, etc. I just want to say she also, FYI, she has 2 degrees in AI. So she really is an expert in this area. I can't wait to hear what you have to say, Maryam. So tell me now, what's your power word for the year?
I like initiate.
Initiate. Okay. I'm turning it over to you to initiate.
Thank you, Patty. And thanks for the lovely introduction. Well, for the next 20 minutes, we want to talk about how to become an AI and cloud professional. But most of the stuff is already addressed by my previous friends and speakers. I was personally extremely inspired by what Chandra said about setting a vision, preparing, and hustle to get that. And I felt like that's it. That's the super secret to get it done. And Vinay and Chaitra did a fabulous job uncovering how to land the cloud job. So I for this part, I like to focus on the AI part. And let me start with how attractive the market is for especially early professional employees to get into the market. On top of everything that Vinay said, like 10% of all the jobs in the market available are cloud and AI jobs. I want to add on the AI side, there were some reports by the US, what is it called? US Emerging Job Report, to be accurate, that like they reported that the number of data scientists and data engineer jobs are growing 35% every year. So you can just imagine the demand, the high demand for these skills on top of the growing rates that like all the employers are desperately looking for the talents at this point. Gartner, one of the top analysts, they reported that the number 1 challenge for the employers at this point is finding the right AI talents that can implement their AI strategy. So this is an exciting time to get into this field. The stars are aligned. It's just the time to set the vision, prepare, and go get it. And that's what we are going to do today. So let me just share my screen. And I'm going to make it full screen. The framework that I wanted to walk you through, it's very simple.
So we can't see your screen. So just so you know, we can't see it.
Okay.
So let's see. I'm not
try one more time. If not, I can just talk through that. So do you see that now?
You might. We can't see it yet. So why don't you just...
Don't worry. Yeah, don't worry. We don't need that. So I can just talk through that. All right. So let me change it a little bit now that you don't see my screen. Let me start with sharing my personal story. And there are 2 things that I want you to take away from this story. Number 1 is just pay attention to how market has been changing and how it impacted my own journey into getting to this area. And then the second one is the path that I took. And the point that I want to make is that you have to find your own path and you have to create your own path. My story is that, as Patty mentioned, I have multiple degrees in AI, but it was 20 years ago. It was before deep learning. It was before AI was such a hot topic and a cool topic in the market. And it was mostly on papers and theoretical discussion. So it wasn't that attractive to me. So for my PhD, I switched to human-computer interaction and human factors, basically taking psychology classes to understand how people interact with the systems. But then I started my first job at IBM as a user experience designer. designing interfaces for non-AI applications. But as I was advancing in as a designer, the field was changing, the market was changing, AI was getting attention. Companies started adopting AI. At the time, they weren't even calling it AI, it was cognitive computing. So I found this job that was called Cognitive Computing Interaction Designer, that was focused on defining interfaces, creating interfaces for cognitive applications at the time. And that was my entry point back to get to AI. And as I joined IBM Research as a designer, but focusing on AI applications, and I started developing the AI part because that was the part that my background was in, and I was fascinated and excited about all the new latest development, to the point that like I became a researcher, AI researcher, and then a research manager. And it kept going until I felt like, hey, I wanted to scale up my impact. So constantly I had this self-discovery of what gets me excited. And I got to a point that I decided to leave research. I joined Lyft. I was managing, as an engineer, I was managing the bikes and scooters operation tech. So if you've used the bikes and scooters for Lyft, my team was responsible to put the right bike at the right place at the right time and make sure that they are charged in terms of the e-bikes. So lots of data processing in terms of predicting the demand, where the riders are going to be, where they are going to pick up the bikes, when should we charge the bikes to minimize the cost of operation. And it was a very solid application of AI. After that, like I decided to, after a couple of years, I decided to get out of my comfort zone again and experience product management. So I came back to IBM as a product manager, and I'm currently managing emerging technology and Watson Core for IBM, planning the future of our AI and AI cloud portfolio. So the interesting part is just how the market changed, how I changed throughout this journey, and how actively I was revisiting at different steps, like what I'm passionate about, how does it align with what the market is asking for, and constantly paying attention into getting my skills up to date. And that's something that one of the speakers earlier mentioned. This is a fast growing market. The newest skills are emerging every day. The current skills are evolving. Yesterday's skills might not be applicable. They are expiring. So if you want to enter into this field, you have to have that dedication to constantly update your skills, constantly reinvent yourself to stay on top of everything. So with that, the framework that I wanted to share with you that I can just walk you through is, number one, start with self-discovery. Take some time to figure out what you want to do, what field you want to operate, like what your role is going to be. As you see in my journey, I started as a designer, I switched to a researcher, and then research manager and engineer, and then I'm a product manager now. So different roles, self-discovery, going through what the demand is and what makes me excited and happy. After that, the second step is identify the job categories you're after. And for this one, I want to focus on the AI part because Vinay did a fabulous job covering the cloud part. I think one approach to identify like what you want to do is, especially with respect to technical jobs, is to follow data from collection to serving, because everything that we do around AI comes with like IA. There is no AI without information architecture. So data, start with thinking about data collection. How do we collect that data? And where the data is going to be stored. There are an ecosystem of different roles around it. Like, for example, some of the job titles that are dealing with just collecting data is data engineers, data ops specialists. They are working on managing data quality, governance, privacy, security of data. There is a job title of infrastructure engineer. Some of the cloud jobs are like cloud engineer, security engineer, networking engineer, some architect, and that's just for collecting the data. So when it comes to, now we have the data, let's see what happens in the data journey next. It goes through conversion to analysis and insight. So data to insight. That's where all the model training comes in, model development and deployment. And that's basically the role of a data scientist, research scientist, ML ops specialist, AI or ML engineer, these roles that you've been hearing about. So that's the territory that we are operating. And after that, when we have the insight, let's say in my lived experience, for example, I have information about prediction of the demand. Now I want to map it to actual actions, like sending people to move the bikes for me. That part is mapping to AI app development and deployment. So a bunch of roles comes in: AI ML engineer, AI ops specialist, software developers come in, designers, product managers come in. And as the previous speakers mentioned, there are tons of more non-technical roles that are not specific to AI, but we can add value and enable the whole technical ecosystem. So number one, identify the job title that you're gonna go after, and identify where your passion lies, like what part of that cycle, the pipeline you wanna operate on. Step number two is to identify the skills. If I want to change my job personally into a new position, transition to a new position, the best thing and the first thing that I do is I go to LinkedIn jobs, I type in the job that I'm looking for, the job title, and I look into the job posting that comes up. I check the responsibilities and I check the qualification. That's the best way to figure out what the skills the market is asking for. The second option is there are tons of surveys out there. So for example, I want to just pick one sample role and walk you through how to land a job in that sample role, and that's data scientist. For data scientists, there is a community that is called Kaggle, and Kaggle every quarter has a survey, a massive survey asking the participants about, for example, what programming languages they're using, what frameworks they are using, and the aggregate of that helps you to figure out what are the top attractive skills that are expected from that role. So for example, for data scientists, the 3 sample questions that I wanted to highlight is, they talked to 26,000 participants. Out of those 26,000 participants, 84% of them were using Python. SQL, 41% of them were using SQL. 70% of them recommended Python as the language for aspiring data scientists to learn first. And 54% of them mentioned Scikit as the framework and machine learning framework that they typically use. So these are all clues for you. It's like, okay, if I want to become a data scientist, Python is probably the best place to start learning the language. The machine learning frameworks that I need to know, scikit-learn is probably the one because it's popular and gives you the clue of where to start. The second one is speak with recruiters. Again, back to LinkedIn. The beauty of that is you can type recruiters, like data science recruiter, and they come up. Reach out to them. Many of them are responsive. When they respond, ask them, hey, like about this job, tell me more about the skills that are required, and you build a network with them, but also you educate yourself about the skills that they are looking for. And the last option is the technical blog posts of the companies. They share lots of information about, for example, data science at Lyft or at IBM, how they are operating, what tools they are using, pay attention to them, figure out what they are doing. So number one that we talked about was self-discovery and market discovery, followed by identifying the job titles, followed by identifying the skills. And that's setting the vision that Chandra was talking about. Now it comes to preparation, time to prepare. Education is the key, as the other speakers mentioned. What are the options for us? College programs is number one. Hands-on training. There are lots of online websites that provide hands-on training. And the beauty of this field is that because it's so popular and it's been around for a few years now, there are lots of high quality online material available for us, most of them free of charge that you can take advantage of. So online tutorials, articles, blogs, courses. MIT has a course on AI. Stanford has a course on AI. Take advantage of them. Number 2, certificates. For example, IBM has a certificate for AI engineers, for people that are interested to get into the field of AI engineering. They walk you through everything that you need to know, and they give you a certificate. So tons of certificates exist. And that's a perfect way to fill up your resume if you don't have the college degree or related work experience. The third one is create your own project. The best way to learn things is through doing things. So define the project, roll up your sleeves, do the coding. There are lots of sample codes outside, and just do it. Learn it by doing it. And the last one that I wanted to mention is create a support team for yourself. Find a mentor, find an advocate, find a prep buddy that is encouraging you along the journey. Join an AI or cloud community. Like, that helps a lot when you have someone to talk to, when you have someone to practice with, when you have someone to share what you learn about. That makes a huge difference. All right. So we talked about preparing. So vision, prepare. The last one is the hustle that Chandra mentioned, which is mapped here really too. How to go get it. First, you have to get an interview. Look for entry point opportunities. The secret sauce for finding many of the jobs is through connections. What you're doing here, attending events, going to communities, reach out to people, expand your network. You never know when your network is going to help you. And the second part to find a job is to go to LinkedIn again, type hiring managers. Because the demand is very high. Everyone is looking for data scientists or other relevant AI roles. It's hard to find a really good talent in the market. So there are, I see that hiring managers personally add that I'm hiring, reach out to me, not just through the channel of recruiters, taking the extra step to find those people. And when you look for, you go on LinkedIn and look for hiring, for data science, for example, those names come up. So you can reach out to them directly and say, hey, for these 3 reasons, I'm interested to join your team, and I'd be a very valuable asset. So not just a cold call, give them a reason to read through what you have to offer. So that was the second option. The third one is going to community events, job fairs, get direct connection to recruiters, get contacts, get introduced to them, and just stay connected with them. Recruiters play a very important role. They are going to be your friends. They are going to be on your side when you look for the job, because they want to close the deal and you want to close the deal. So take advantage of them. Don't feel like recruiters are on the side of the company, and just they are there to help you. Ask them exactly what the skill requirements are. Ask them what is the experience level that is expected. Ask them to even how to prepare. Ask them if there are other people that they can connect you to talk about the job and get more information. So take advantage of recruiters. The 5th channel is internships and early professional hiring programs. Most of the companies have a separate channel for entry-level jobs. If you are new to that field, I think you should take advantage of those, because it's much easier to get those jobs. They usually have a separate channel that doesn't go through the hiring team. It's usually centralized depending on the company. The policy is different, the interview process is different, and it's in your favor. Chances are in your favor. So identify those. I know IBM has one. Many other companies, Lyft had one. Take advantage of those, look for those, and invest your time and energy on getting access to those programs. And last but not least, volunteer projects. again, the best way to show that you can do it is do it and then add it to your resume, or you have something at least during the interviews to talk about it. Ask around if there are many startups that they would love to have you volunteer your time, help them. I'm pretty sure in your friends and family or in the network, you can find options to just volunteer your time and get involved into those conversations. And that's the best way to showcase your skills. And the last one is, let's say you got an interview, you got to the interview lesson phase. Now it's time to prep for interview. Prepping for interview is different than prepping to get a skill, to become familiar with the domain. Skills, the interview preparation is very specific. It depends on the job asking. It depends on the culture of the company. It depends on the questions they are asking. So for example, if you want to prep for a job at IBM, is completely different than Microsoft or other companies. So you have to pay attention about how to prep for that specific job and talk to as many people as possible, or find the online material that can help you for that specific type, specific job, not the specific role that you're applying for. And then just go get it, because the stars are aligned. This is the perfect timing to be in the market, and you just have to do the self-discovery, set the vision, prepare yourself, and go get it. There is no better way to enter this AI and cloud market. And I'm going to end at this point. Patty, back to you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so ready. I want to say that MIT also has a free Python course, because I went in there to learn Python. And I was like, a couple of years ago, I was like, I have to go and learn some coding. Otherwise, I'm just going to feel so out of it. And I thought, no, coding is not going to be your route. But good to know, right? Thank you so much for sharing all that information and all those great tips. I mean, really, it was soup to nuts from the very beginning. And I loved your story at the beginning. So thanks again, Maryam.
Thank you.
It was really great to have you.
Thank you so much.
All right.